Okay, now that we've got some steam frames prepared, and they look like they've been seasoned fairly well. These have been in the heat for 7 days. Normally they would take 2 weeks on natural drying process. I force dry them a little by having them hung around the shop or close to the wood stove. So they have a good forced air on them for at least 5 or 6 days. And you'll know if they're seasoned enough when you release the first clamps. But before we release the clamps, we have to make sure that they're going to match when we reassemble them after we take them off of the mold. So what I do is I'll put a match line on one side, and then I'll put one on this side, a little different so we don't mix them up. And inversely, we've got to do the other side because we've got 2 snowshoes here. Again, a match line, and we'll give it an orientation, so we just give it a number. In this particular case here, we've got that one done. So now, if this comes off and it doesn't spring away at us and is seasoned enough to handle, we can remove the clamps and it should stay relaxed to the mold. So now we'll get all this out of our way. We'll remove these. The bottoms are really nice and secured. They're actually snug to the frame. And we'll get this mold away for now. Now, we'll take one pair of them for now. And what we see is we've got a pretty good fit here. And in preparation for the gluing stage, we're just going to glue the surface areas where the lap is. So in this case here, I'm going to put, we've got this orientation marked where the frames go together, and I'm going to put another mark here so that I know the extent of the glue. And all I'm going to be doing is gluing this inside here. I'll match up these lines and put a stopper line there. So for the gluing process, we'll give this a quick touch up on the belt sander just to smooth off any wrinkles in this side, as here. Similarly, we'll do this part of the snowshoe, the top half, on the belt sander or the drum sander, just to have a nice clean surface. So for the illustration here, I would have laid glue on this side, glue on this side, held these in place, and then you always use the blocks for the gluing so that you don't damage the frame. We'd have the glue on both of those surfaces. We'd probably put a series of about 5 clamps on each side and let that glue for 24 hours. Then we'd go back to the nailing process, which we've already done when we've taken it off of the frame. Now in this particular case here, this would be this is my largest frame. This would be a 27 by 18. And an example of one that's glued, just let me step back. Would be the smaller patterns, but you can see lots of blocking because the clamps will damage the wood and you don't want that surface damage after you've spent that much time making them. This will stay for the 24 hours. We'll remove this and then we'll proceed with the nailing so that there's no nails impacted where the cross beams are going to go. Okay, after we unloaded this frame yesterday, we had match lines on the frame so we could get it back together as it was on the mold. And there's a different one for that other side. So what we're going to do this morning is we're going to glue these up. And after they're glued, then we'll proceed to the nailing step, which we'll leave these hang overnight. So the most important thing I need to know now is what's the extent of the glue that I'm going to apply to this. All I'll do is I'll take the inside frame and I'll go to the end of the outside frame on it and just give me a little indicator. I'll do the same thing after I match up the lines on this side. So that's going to tell me where I've got to apply the glue in order to get these together at the same size and as they came off the mold. What I'm using here is an exterior grade waterproof glue. It seems to work the best for these. It's not affected by the transitions of heat and cold and the 30 belows and the pluses in your shed. I'll give this one a little smear. I want to make sure we cover it all. We'll even that out. Make sure there's no splinters or lumps or sawdust in there. A little damp cloth to keep your fingers clean and to get rid of the residue. And we're going to do the second one. Again, a lot of fellows don't glue them. They just proceed with the nailing. This just gives a little bit of better fit and a little comfort that they're not going to break on you. Okay, we'll spread this one. Now we'll get them approximately in place. And we'll stick a small clamp on them. Keep it there while I'm working. Again, what we're trying to do now is make sure that we match these lines so that individually glued, they're still going to match each other for a set. Okay. Now we start to clamp them, but we start from the middle so that we don't create any pockets and we get a tight fit. The only two things that you want to watch when you're gluing is number one, that your match lines are together, and that the edges are flush with each other. So I'll get this one just snugged up. The match lines look pretty good. I can give this a little twist, and then we'll secure this one. And tight is good. Over tighten will starve the joint, which means you'll force most of the glue out and it won't be able to work. Now you'll notice that every time I clamp, we did it when we were steaming the frames, and that was critical because where the wood is hot and soft, you could actually dent it. Here we're doing, now that these have been sanded before the gluing, we're using the blocks so that we don't damage the wood also. And all these little blocks are just small, usually 1/4 to 2 inch long pieces of either oak, birch, some kind of hardwood. The bigger blocks that we use in the steaming process are just plywood. Now we can remove this one. We can see we're going together well. We'll just proceed up till this one's done. on there is going to be a little tricky because it's in a curve. Could be a little higher. There we go. There, we get the glue coming. That's enough pressure. And the last one. And that's a good fit. Now we'll swing it around. I'll move this for a little clarity. Start in the middle again. Check our match line. Snugged up. And we'll check this and the level. And we're good. Now, when we get this clamped, what we're going to do is let this, the glue in itself is usually 20 minutes to an hour. But you can't introduce it to any mechanical work, as in drilling or hammering or anything like that, for at least 24. So I just leave them hanging for a day to make sure they're got good gluing. And then immediately before I start chiseling the wood to install beams, I do the nailing. Gives it a little extra. And again, the nails had to be copper or aluminum to prevent any corrosion, because it will rust. A regular steel nail in these, because they're introduced to so much weather, heat and cold and wet, that it will start to corrode and enlarge the holes, and then they'll just become loose. So this one is glued. We got a really good seam, a little bit of glue coming out. You can always wipe off the excess, although it's removed quite easily after in the sanding process. This side here, a little oozing, still good joints, good seams. So we'll hang this and we'll let this dry for 24 hours. We'll do the other one the same thing, and then this will be ready then for the nails and the installation of the cross beams.